I wasn't finished. That's what my husband says to me all the time when I tell him that I was 10 weeks premature. And the reason I think I was 10 weeks premature born is because my French mother in the 60s smoked 2 packs of cigarettes every single day. This was the thing to do. Nobody told her not to do that. So I think I came out 10 weeks early because I needed to breathe fresh air because I was probably smoking it up in utero. When I came out at 10 weeks early, I was in an incubator, and then I had asthma as a child, my whole childhood. I also had scoliosis, so my spine wasn't straight. It's all in an S shape. My teeth didn't grow straight, and my single mother of 3 didn't have the money to pay for braces. So, vulnerable moment. When I first started AcuPoints Academy, I was so worried about going on camera and talking on camera. First, because I had a French accent. Second, because I didn't have straight teeth, and I thought, oh my God, who's going to want to listen to me? I don't look great. But then my husband had a great point. He's the best support. He's the yin to my yang. He said, if you want to impact people and help people, who cares what you look like? It's all about how you help people. And I let that go. And then I didn't care, and I went online, and nobody's ever said to me, oh, your teeth are not straight, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares because I'm here to share everything about Chinese medicine. So I wasn't born with great kidney essence, so Jing, according to Chinese medicine. And so today we're going to talk about the 4 vital substances and why they are so vital. We need them to stay alive. Qi, blood, body fluid, and of course, essence. Welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, I'm Clara, and I create Chinese medicine and acupuncture content for students and practitioners, making it easy to grasp and fun to learn. Let's start it up. We are going to talk about the 4 vital substances. And it's really appropriately named vital because that means we need them in order to survive. Vital comes from the Latin vi, which is, or vita, which means life, right? And it's very common for a lot of people that are in the Latin languages to know that, because in French, in Italian, and Spanish, that's a word we use a lot. So they're vital. Now, before we start with the 4 vital substances, which are qi, blood, body fluid, and essence, I want to preface this by saying that some text in TCM, because this is what I love about TCM, is some text will be different. It's kind of like some text will not agree on some yin and yang or 5 elements theory. Everybody's going to have different school of thoughts. We know that. This is part of TCM, and that's what I think is challenging but fun. So some text or ancient text will say there's 5 substances, the 5th one being the mind, the Shen, the spirit. Other texts will say that the 3 treasures are qi, essence, and the mind. Text will say 4 vital substances are all related to the mind, which I connect with the best. So for the purpose of this, we're going to stick to the 4 vital substances according to TCM Foundation in a way that's very classical. But we will talk about the mind because it is really connected to all 4 vital substances. Now, as I said, they are vital, meaning we can't live without them. And they are, as you know, qi, blood, body fluid, and essence. So if we compare them all and use the yin-yang theory, qi is much more yang because its movement, its change, its growth, it's always constantly moving. So it's much more yang than, let's say, blood, which is matter, right? So it would be more yin because it is matter. Right, so if you compare 2 entities, we talked about this 3 weeks ago in the yin-yang theory, it's always comparing 2 things that actually are comparable, right? You always have to compare to something. So qi would be more yang and blood would be more yin, for example, right? Because it's more matter. Fluid is on matter as well, and essence is matter. So they're more on the yin side compared to qi, but then you can compare them with each other, and that may change as well. Make sense? Okay. So let's start the 4 vital substances with qi. So before I talk about, how is qi formed, what is the function of qi, let's talk about qi in general. When I talk about qi in class to students or to patients who ask me a question about qi, I like to keep it called qi, not energy, not translated. It's the same as when we talked about yin and yang. Yin and yang are Chinese words or concepts, so we can't translate them. Well, qi is the same thing. It's a concept, So you can't really translate it. You can explain it, but you can't translate it with the word energy. Yes, energy is chi, but chi is not just energy. Make sense? So I like to keep the word chi in the pinyin and keep it Chinese. So chi, first of all, is everywhere. It's anything that's moving, that's constant, that's changing. I wanted to say constantly changing. That is part of our body, for example, physiology, the way our body digests food, our breathing ability, everything that is physiology in our body is part of chi, right? And there's lots of subcategories of chi. Chi is everywhere. In this cupboard, in this table, there's chi. There's chi going through the camera within you and me, right? We are connected through energy. And so that chi, often I tell patients, I said, it's something that is everywhere surrounding us. And it's part of nature. It's our connection to nature. It's our connection to people. And so, when you walk into a room and there's someone and then you start talking to them and right away you have a connection, even though you know nothing about them, but you feel that connection right away. That's a feeling. That's chi. That's that positive chi. Now, chi can be positive, negative. It can have it doesn't matter which form. It has many forms. For example, with the pandemic that we went through in the last few years, for me, I know the first 6 to 8 months of it, I felt chi around me being very heavy, very stagnated, very angry, right? A lot of people were angry. A lot of people were fearful. There was a lot of emotion that were not positive in my thinking. And I felt like it was very heavy and it was stagnated and it took over. So it felt like that heavy, stagnated chi kind of thing. So it's just more of a feeling. And I always say to people, because you can't see something, it doesn't mean it's not there, right? So when we have two magnets that attract or repel, we can't see anything between the magnet. However, there is chi there that is pushing. We can feel it or pulling. We feel that, right? We also feel chi when there is a feeling of something is not right. This is what I call our gut chi or sixth sense chi. Our feeling that tells us something. We don't always listen to it, but tells us something's not right or we don't feel quite it's right. Or the opposite. We feel that energy, we're like, this is right. This is it. I know, I feel it in my gut, right? So that energy is all chi. So chi assumes many forms all around us, the planet, everything, our connection to everything, to earth, to nature and everything. So chi is everywhere. The simple way is, I always say, take two magnets and then they attract and repel. You can't see what's in between, but you can feel it. Think of chi as something you can feel and something you can't always see, but something that is constantly in movement. And so we can adapt it to the body. If we adapt it to the body, chi is our physiological aspect. It's every function that's happening. For me to move my arms, I need a central nervous system that's firing all day long. Those firing nerves and neurons are part of chi, right? They're constantly doing something, and that allows me to be here with you. So that's a wide explanation of chi. Now let's talk about chi within the body. So when it comes to chi in general, in Chinese medicine, we look at how is it formed? How do we get chi, right? So we have the congenital chi. Congenital chi is called yuan chi, Y-U-A-N. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Congenital chi is the chi that was given to us by our parents. So when I started today, I talked about the fact that I was born 10 weeks premature. I had scoliosis. I had asthma as a kid. I was sick all the time. I didn't have my teeth growing straight, etc., etc. That was given to me as a genetic background from my parents. My mom, who wasn't healthy during the pregnancy, who smoked prior and during pregnancy. Both my parents drank quite a lot of wine. They're very French. Both smoked a lot. So that energy that comes together is given to me, right? And that comes at the time of conception. There's lots of chi there, right? It's conception time, lots of energy, lots of passion. And then we conceive. Now, after that, there's more yuan or yuan chi that is being given to the child from the mother during the pregnancy as well. So it puts a little bit more pressure on the mother's health than the father after conception, right? And so congenital chi was given to us by our parents, and that's going to come up as so you have two different kind of, and we're going to talk about essence versus congenital qi, which is more yuan qi versus essence. Congenital qi is more the physiological aspect. What essence is more the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, the fact that I had scoliosis, or someone is born with, missing a limb, or something that's completely genetic in that perspective of anatomy. However, with yuan qi or congenital qi, it's more your physiological aspect. So more something that is going to be in your family. For example, a lot of people have high blood pressure or Crohn's disease or colitis, or diverticulitis. A lot of people will have disorders that are family genetically embedded in them, right? So they can develop them or not, but it's embedded, it's given. So that's congenital qi. That comes from the parents, and it resides in the kidney with essence, within the TCM kidneys, okay? Now that's life. We were given life, we were given birth. Yay! Two people gave us birth. The birth parents, gave us life. Now, once we came out, we needed two things to survive. Only two things to survive. We needed food and drinks, right? So breast milk, if obviously that was an option, which has both nutrients, food and drinks, right? And we needed fresh air, or we needed to be able to breathe and to have air, right? Those are the only two things we need to survive nowadays. If we don't go without breathing or air or oxygen for so many minutes, we can't survive. This is why it's vital, right? It's really something we need to survive. And if we don't get food for, let's say, weeks and weeks and weeks, we perish slowly, and we may die. So food, drinks, I put that in the same category, and air, those are the two things that are postnatal qi, right? It's after we are born, we need those two things to continue to live. So how is qi formed? First, it's given birth by our parents. That's congenital, and we can't change that. And then the second part is postnatal qi, and that's food and drinks and air. So this is why it's really important to feed our body well, to drink well, to breathe deeply, because this is what gives us life and good qi. Make sense? Okay, so that's how it's formed. The second thing is to look at what is the function of qi in the body. And like I said earlier, it's every physiological function in your body. It warms us through regulating temperature, through the Mingmen fire. So the Mingmen fire is found in the kidneys for libido, for energy, for feeling, full of energy. So we can move around, we can run around. So it raises energy as well. Specifically, qi is in charge of raising and keeping our energy up. So when we feel like this and we're oh, no energy, qi is not functioning properly and it's depleted, right? So we're going to talk about this in a minute as well. What happened with pathology of qi. It's in charge of growth, development, right? We need qi and energy, and we need the physiological aspect in order for our body to grow, to become from a baby to a child to an adult, also to grow bones, to grow hair, to grow anything that needs to be grown. Our brain function to grow, right? So this is part of qi. It's also in charge of holding our body up. It's in charge of defensive, right? It's a defense system. It's in charge of our immune system to fight invaders the best it can. So it's all our system is going to be part of qi and the physiological aspect. But what's interesting, and there's not one qi, it's just everything is qi. It's all connected. There's no, this is the qi of the lung to help us breathe. This is the qi of, those are sub-form. But as a whole, it's just really one qi. And if you talk to, if you guys listen to Dr. Bruce Lipton or any physicist, they absolutely concur that there is an energetic field all around us. And that's qi. They absolutely agree with this, which I think is great because it's science meeting ancient medicine, and that is the best outcome for people to understand that this medicine is amazing, and they have discovered this a long time ago. Great segue to talking about qi being everywhere. So thanks, Brian. Yoo-hoo-hoo. Okay, so we understand the function, we understand how it's formed. And Ellen is here from Ireland. Hello, the Green Island. So now let's talk about classification of qi. Like I said, there's only one qi, but there's subform to it, so we can understand how TCM looks at qi and how we utilize them, or these subforms, in clinical practice. So first of all, we talked about yuan qi, right? Yuan qi is the source qi. Is the qi that is congenital. That's the one that was given to us by our parents and helps us grow, develop as human being. Now, the yuan source points, the yuan source acupuncture points, is what you will needle when you need to access yuan qi. Also, the Sanjiao meridian accesses yuan qi point as well. So those are really powerful and useful in clinical practice. How do you use them? For example, Li4 is the yuan qi point, or the source qi, yuan source qi point of the large intestine. So let's say in the family of the patients, there is a lot of IBS, right? There's irritable bowel syndrome that's been passed on from generation, and you found that out. Large intestine 4 is where you're going to access that yuan qi of the large intestine. So this is a really good point to do for people that have IBS, for example. Does that make sense, right? So it's kind of looking at it from that perspective. Heart 7 is the yuan source point of the heart. So if people have tendency to have cardiovascular disease in their family, you want to use heart 7 as a preventative measure because you want to access the yuan source qi of the heart. Make sense? Cool. Okay. Hannah said, you are full of qi. Woo-hoo! When I'm on camera, I'm full of qi and I'm full of yang. And then after I finish teaching here, I usually go and sit and do a bit of meditation to calm the energy and to balance it out. So I'm trying to balance it out because when I get excited, I could just go on forever, as you know, when it comes to that. So that's the first yuan qi. Then the second subform of qi is zong qi. So zong, Z-O-N-G, is the chest qi. The gathering, often it's translated as chest or gathering qi. And it's the qi of the upper jiao, which really encompasses the lung and heart. So this qi is the one that allows us breathing ability, right? Breathing in and breathing out, which we said is key to staying alive, right? It's vital. So the zong qi is the heart and lung function together. And they are functioning together because as I breathe in oxygen through the lung, that oxygen is going to go into my blood vessels and my circulatory system, right? It's going through the heart and then comes back out as CO2 when I exhale. And I do this in less than 3 seconds, breathing in, breathing out, and my body's going through my whole circulatory system. I bring oxygen to the blood cells. It's fantastic. So zong qi is really the chest breathing ability and connection from the heart and lung. The other that sounds almost the same but is not, which is zhong qi, zhong versus zong. And don't quote me on my Mandarin pronunciation. So Z-H-O-N-G, which means middle, it means middle in Chinese. So Z-H-O-N-G or zhong qi is the middle qi. And that is our digestive system. It's the spleen and stomach function in TCM, but it's the digestive system in the middle of our body. And that's in charge of transforming and transporting food into nutrients, which is what we need in order to survive, right? We need to eat and drink in order to survive because we get the nutrients in order for our body to function. So the digestive system, the zhong qi, really is going to benefit a lot from, for example, spleen 3. Spleen 3 is 2 things. It's the yuan source point of spleen. So any digestive system issue that is deep-seated or hereditary, we should use spleen 3, right? And spleen 3 is also the point that helps the body assimilate, absorb, and transform and transport nutrients into energy. So that is a point we have to do to access zhong qi, but also yuan qi of the spleen. So see, if someone has IBS, for example, and we said we have to use the yuan qi of large intestine, Li4, because that is going to go, if it's hereditary, it's going to help the person. However, spleen 3 should also be there, right? This is how we're going to slowly put our treatment plan. Make sense? Okay. So those are the main subcategories. Then we have Jing Qi. So Z-H-E-N. Z-H-E-N. Jing Qi is true Qi, vital Qi. And that's the Qi that circulates within the meridians, right? When we learn about all the meridians and we say meridian circulates Qi in blood, this is the Qi that circulates in the meridian. That's the true Qi, the Jing Qi. Now, with this Jing Qi, we have two sub-forms of Qi, or subcategories of Qi within that true Qi, that Jing Qi that circulates in the meridian. It is Wei Qi and Yin Qi. So the Wei Qi is the defensive Qi. It's the one that circulates mostly on the skin, muscle, and external part of our body to try to defend our body or guard our body, right? That's our defense system. And that is more on the external part. Now, Yin Qi is the nutritive Qi. It's more everything that's happening within inside our body, our organ function, our brain function. Those two are connected through acupuncture needles. So when we put a needle on the skin to activate a point and to activate a minute nerve to send signal to the brain to self-regulate, to self-heal, to bring more endorphin or more parasympathetic state into the body, we are going through the Wei Qi, and it's going to reach the Yin Qi, which is inside and trying to really balance the inside of our body. So when we needle, we are activating Yin Qi through Wei Qi, and that is called Jing Qi, or the Qi that circulates all over the meridian. Hopefully that made sense, right? So then the point, when you learn meridians, if you learn the long meridian, for example, we always say the long meridian starts at long 1, which is in the chest, and finishes at the thumb, which is long 11, right? However, the long meridian does not start at long 1. It starts in the middle jiao, inside, then goes down to the large intestine, goes back up through the long organ to the throat, and then comes out at long 1, right? So that internal part is Yin Qi. That's where Yin Qi circulates. And the external part with all the points, the 11 points of the lung, that's where Wei Qi circulates. And that's how we connect the point to the inside in order to activate the true Qi, the Jing Qi. Yes? Woo! What's the difference between Jing Qi and Gu Qi? Great question, Linda. Yes, I should talk about this. And then we got, how about Jing Qi, upright Qi as Wei Qi? How are those different? So Jing Qi or upright Qi is the true Qi. That is the true Qi. And that's what I was explaining. The difference is Jing Qi is the big guy, and in between it has two arms or two subform, Wei Qi and Yin Qi. Now, what's the difference between Gu Qi and not Gu Qi as the Italian fashion company? But what's the difference between Gu Qi and Jing Qi? Great question as well. Okay, so I get that question in class all the time, so I love that. I forgot to talk about this. So Jing Qi is our digestive system. It's the energetic being of our physiology of taking the nutrients and transforming into energy for our body. That's Jing Qi. That's the digestive system energy. What's Gu Qi is the energy of the food we're putting in our body. So Gu Qi is the food Qi, which means, let's say I'm eating an apple that's organic. I'm bringing really good Gu Qi in the body. If I'm eating, let's say an almonds, a bunch of almonds, and I'm bringing good Gu Qi into my body, and then Jing Qi transport it into nutrients and energy for my body. However, if I'm eating processed food and fast food and bad food that I say is nutrients free, doesn't have any nutrients, like potato chips and all those kind of things, if I'm eating that, I'm eating bad Gu Qi or not Gu Qi energy, not good energy. I'm not bringing good food nutrients energy into Jing Qi for it to transform it and transport it. Yes? So now we know all about Qi and how it's formed and what happened and how it's used and everything in that perspective. let's talk about pathology. What can happen when qi is not properly functioning? As I said earlier when we first started, during the pandemic, qi was really sick, right? Everybody could feel the heaviness, the anger, the stress, the anxiety, the fear all around you, right? Within you, but also all around you. It was really hard depending where you were. That energy, that qi was really palpable. For me, it was when you really, attune with those things. That was qi as a collective worldwide level that was really heavy and not good, right? It was pathology of the whole world that was just not doing good. So, awesome. So let's look at the pathology of qi. Only 4 things can happen with qi. If it's not working properly, either it's stagnated, rebelling, deficient, or sinking. Easy. So the first 2, which is stagnated or rebelling, are excess patterns. In Chinese medicine, we either have an excess pattern or a deficiency pattern. And often students will say, well, how do I know if it's excess or deficiency? And I'll say, well, if it says deficiency, you got it, right? And if it says sinking, pretty much you're sinking, it's a deficiency. However, anything else is excess, right? If there's excess yin, blood stasis, liver qi stagnation, rebelling, that's excess. If it says deficiency or sinking, that's a deficiency. That's how we know if it's excess or deficiency. Okay, so stagnation, pretty much the only organ that can be qi stagnated is liver, because liver is in charge of moving qi all over the body for better flow and relaxation. And when we're stressed, then qi stagnates. And so symptoms are going to be tension in the shoulders, temporal headache at the end of the day, especially if we've had a stressful day, maybe, a bad headache, irritability, frustration, anger, right? Tension in the body. So not always in the shoulders, sometimes it's in the jaw, right? People clench a lot. It could be that as well. It could be in different places depending how much stress and tension. For women specifically, at PMS time or premenstruation or prior to period, women will have tendency to have breast tenderness, tender breast, bloating, have tendency to have constipation, things that are moving very well. And once they get their period, those things move better, right? So that also gives us a clue. Other things that we don't think about all the time is cold hands and cold feet are usually a liver qi stagnation. Qi is not moving blood properly and there's not enough circulation. Now, it can lead to blood stasis where it's really, really bad and you can have Raynaud's, but at the beginning, it's a liver qi stagnation for cold hands and feet. That's often the case. Also, something we don't always think about, clumsiness, like you bump into things or you drop things easily. That's a liver qi stagnation. It means you stress, your mind is not in the moment, you're thinking of 20 million things at once, and your body is not paying attention. So that's another sign. And then one more that I see patients do all the time is this. The sighing, right? Sighing is a sign of liver qi stagnation because it's a sign of stress. You're finally releasing that breath because you've been go, and so stressed all day long. Make sense? Okay, so liver qi stagnation is when everything is stressed, and that's the only organ that's going to have a qi stagnation. And the best point for that is liver 3. I would say that you can add up Li4 if you wanted to, and gallbladder 34. Those are great to move the qi in the body. Second thing is to do also massage, to exercise, to move your qi, right? I always say to students, you're going to be in school for hours, or patients that sit at their desk for hours and hours and hours, and you're sitting. It's really important that every time we have a break at school or you are working, take breaks, stand up, start moving around. Even if it's to go to the bathroom, stretch your body, move, because otherwise qi stagnate, right? Makes sense. All right. So now the second one is rebellious. It's rebelling. It's not happy, right? So when qi rebels, it can happen to only a few organs. And so when we talk about the most common one, I think for me would be the stomach. That's the easiest thing. Stomach qi goes down as a normal entity, right? Stomach energy goes down. You eat the food and stomach transform it and then bring it down to the duodenum and the small intestine that keeps going down. So stomach qi goes down. However, when it's not working properly, it rebels up. So stomach chi rebelling means instead of going down, it's going up. And we're going to have acid reflux, heartburn, acid regurgitation, maybe nausea, vomiting, right? That's all stomach chi rebelling. It's going the wrong way. It's rebelling. It's going the opposite way. So obviously, that's when we want to look at what the root cause is. We always have to look at the root cause of all those things, right? Like it could be morning sickness due to pregnancy. It could be that the person is, not eating enough or overeating or the digestive issues. Maybe it's stress and anxiety that's causing it. We always have to look for the cause. That's a different story. But once that happens, you want to make sure that you can bring the rebellious chi down. So when 17 would be your local point, and the distal point would be pericardium 6, for example, which is really good when stomach chi rebels. Stomach 36 is a good one as well because it's the commander point of the digestive system. And you could go on, but those are the basic points. Make sense? Okay. The second one is the lung. When we are looking at lung chi direction in a good state when we're healthy goes down. This is why when we breathe in good oxygen, we breathe it in and it goes down to the kidneys and the kidneys grasp that chi for more oxygen, right? Like that's why it's really important to breathe all the way to the belly button, not just shallow breathing. We're breathing in all the way to the belly button. That expands our oxygen. It brings good chi, good oxygen to our blood cells. Now, after that, we expel CO2. That's part of in and out. However, the good oxygen has to go down. So when lung chi doesn't function properly, we have rebelling lung chi, which means we cough, right? There's a lot of cough happening. We could cough dry, phlegm, chronic, acute, but that's cough. The best point to bring down lung chi for cough is lung 5. That is the best point for that. Now you can add up other points depending if the person is coughing phlegm, like stomach 40, or it's chronic, acute, etc. Looking at the cause. But lung 5 has to be there. The last rebelling chi is liver. So how does liver chi rebels? Well, as we said, liver is in charge of moving chi all over the body. So if it doesn't move it, it gets stagnated, right? And so it's stagnated this way. That's the beginning. That's the first one. It's stagnated. It's not moving. However, this person is stressed, and then more stress is put upon this person. Maybe more things happen in their life, more overwhelm, more pressure, and suddenly there's like a little boiling pot here. They're so tense, so stressed, and it's ready to explode like a volcano. And that's liver yang rising, which means it's liver chi rebelling up, right? It's just too much, and the person lets out the explosion. I call it the volcano because volcano is heat, right? And so what happened is liver yang comes from liver chi stagnation and rises up. And so we get temporal headache at the end of the day that feels better maybe with a cool compress. We also feel like really angry or irritable. We can't sleep at night. We're going to be up between 1 and 3 a.m. liver time, for example. High blood pressure, red eyes, red face. All this will come up and rise up. That's liver yang rising or liver chi rebelling. So the best point for that? Come on. Tell me what the best point for that is. Liver 2. Liver 2 is the best point to bring the liver yang down. Now, if you want to bring more energy down, you can do kidney 1. There's other points to add, but liver 2 is the best one. Yes? Okay, so those are 2 excess patterns. Let's look at the deficiency pattern. I go, hello from Slovakia, wonderful lady. Thank you for your time. Again, fantastic as always. Thank you, Sylvia, for coming from Slovakia. I love it. Okay, so let's look at the deficiency pattern. This is easy. Chi deficiency, main symptoms is fatigue, weak pulse, pale tongue. Easy. Fatigue, weak pulse, pale tongue. That is a basic chi deficiency symptom. Now, it can affect different organs. The main yin organ, for example, if it is lung chi deficiency, we have still weak pulse, pale tongue, and fatigue. However, we also have weak immune system and we get sick a lot and it's very hard for us to recover. We catch cold and flu all the time. If it's heart chi deficiency, it's tendency to be anxious and sweat easily without being hot, right? It's just anxiety leading to sweat because heart is in charge of controlling sweat. So heart chi deficiency main symptoms is anxiety, palpitation leading to sweat without feeling hot, plus fatigue, weak pulse, Feel tone. If it's a spleen qi deficiency, we're going to have loose stools, poor appetite. Those are going to be your main one adding up to it. If it's kidney qi deficiency, we may have incontinence, we may have seminal emission, and have tendency to obviously be fatigued as well, right? So those, because kidney is in charge of the lower gates, opening and closing the lower gate. When it's deficient, it doesn't have that ability. So we have incontinence, seminal emission, etc. That's how we look at it. So those are going to be affected. Basic qi lifting or basic qi deficiency points would be stomach 36, spleen 6, Ren 6, and do 20. I was going to say, it's all 6s except do 20. So stomach 36, spleen 6, Ren 6, and do 20. Those are the best to be as a basic to raise qi when it's deficient. And then after that, you can add up depending if it's affecting the heart, the lung, the spleen, the kidney, what organ it's affecting. And then you can go more in depth depending on each patient and the symptoms. Yes? Okay, the last one is spleen qi sinking. I think we all know that's the easiest one to understand. It's past spleen qi deficiency, it's now sinking. The only organ that can sink is spleen, because spleen is in charge of raising qi. Next week, we will talk about all the organs function and how does that play in Chinese medicine. So because spleen is in charge of raising qi, energy, we are going to be very fatigued. But past qi deficiency, qi sinking is exhaustion. Like you're really exhausted. It's not even fatigue, it's exhaustion, right? It's chronic fatigue syndrome. Very hard to even get out of bed. And then we may have prolapse of organs. So a bearing down sensation in the abdominal region. And prolapse of organ can be transverse colon that's prolapsing, bladder, it could be uterus, right? It could be rectum. So that's prolapse coming down. It could also be drooping of the eyelids, because remember, the upper eyelid are connected to spleen in Chinese medicine. And so when they're drooping, that's a spleen qi sinking as well. Okay? And the best combo for that is spleen 6, Ren 6, and do 20. Lift that energy. And then you can add up more points depending, and also formulas depending on what we want to do for that. I have a great video on adrenal fatigue in my YouTube channel that you're welcome to go and watch, and I explain everything about adrenal fatigue, treatment, and everything else. So it's a good video to see as well. Okay, let's see. We have, Brazil is here. Lume is here. Obrigado for being here. Does liver yang rising require liver yin deficiency as a prerequisite? That's a great question. You guys have a great question today. I love it. It does not, because liver qi stagnation can be the main culprit to liver yang rising. However, when there is yin deficiency, it will, it will lead to liver yang rising. So yin deficiency of liver will always have some liver yang rising, but liver yang rising doesn't always come from liver yin deficiency. It can come from liver qi stagnation. Hopefully that made sense for you. Okay. Where do we choose Ren 6 over Ren 4 to tonify? April asked. Yeah, that's a good question. So Ren 6 is the qi high, which means the C of qi. So it is absolutely to lift qi. Ren 4 is there to, it's like the Mingmen. It's there to, like do 4, to warm up the energy of Mingmen fire, to warm up the yang, specifically kidney yang. So if there is a lot of yang deficiency and coldness and really depleted kidney yang, we want to add up Ren 4. And I probably would put them together. But if there's no coldness, Ren 6 is the best bet to bring qi back up. Great question, you guys. Is it possible to treat more than one of these qi at the same time if there is, like, for example, stagnation and sinking? Yes, Mark, good question as well. Absolutely. Now, you want to go and look at which one is more in dire strait and which one came first and look at the root cause. However, you absolutely can do liver 3 and gallbladder 34, right, to move liver qi, and then do Ren 6, do 20, stomach 36, spleen 6 to boost that qi. Absolutely. I will say that 90% of all patients have an excess pattern and a deficiency pattern, right? So it's really hard to separate them because they are connected. It's looking at what we want to do first and what we want to address, what's really vital at this time. So absolutely, quite often I do points that tonify and points that, clear, for sure. What are your recommendations to supplement and nourish qi and yin body fluid after Western supplement thyroid therapy? Okay, Raphael, I'm going to talk about nourishing body fluid once we get to talk about the body fluid today. So it's coming. I'm going to talk about that to supplement and nourish qi and yin and body fluid. So we're going to talk about that. I'll talk about that during the body fluid if you don't mind. Love your teaching from Michigan. Oh, thank you. Okay, so we've got this qi pathology, yes? So that's it, right? If you look at qi direction, because we talked about rebelling, right, the wrong way, or qi of liver that goes everywhere. I want to finish by saying spleen qi goes up, and that's healthy. When it is not healthy, it will go down. That means we're fatigued and it's sinking. Heart qi goes down when it's healthy, and we feel calm. And when it's not healthy, it rebels up, and our mind is overactivated, and we have insomnia, right? Or anxiety, or a lot of things happening in our brain, and it just can't shut down. Kidney qi, when it's healthy, goes up. It keeps everything up, right? It keeps our energy up. It keeps our lower gates closed. When it's not, everything goes down. We have edema of the ankles, of the lower leg. We have incontinence and loss of ability to, to keep our lower gate closed and opening. So I just wanted to finish with that because I forgot to mention all the direction of qi of most organs. Okay, so that was for qi. Literally, we spend all this time on qi because it's a big subject. This one's going to be a little bit more easy. I think blood, body fluid, and essence are a little bit faster to talk about. So blood in TCM, or shui, or blood in TCM, is obviously material. It's a matter, right? It's blood. We know what blood is. Now, how is it formed? It's the same idea as qi and blood. We have what was given to us, which is our congenital blood, which is found in kidney essence and kidney, right? And that blood is our blood type, right? So if you're blood type A or B or AB or O, minus, negative, positive, whatever is your blood type, that cannot be changed. That's part of what was given by your parents. So that is the first thing. You were given blood at birth, right? And that doesn't change. If you have a blood disorder like hemophilia, that's a birth blood disorder that was passed on. Make sense? Okay, so that's formation of pre-congenital blood that's formed and now by the kidneys. However, then we have post-congenital, just kind of like with qi. And how do we get blood? We get blood that is produced by spleen and stomach, or the digestive system, right? Because blood is all minerals. So for women, for example, and I'll say women because they have way more tendency to be anemic than men because they lose blood every month. Women have tendency to be anemic. They may be low in ferritin, magnesium, zinc. All of us can be low in mineral, and that's affecting our blood, right? So we need to have all the nutrients that give us enough ferritin and magnesium and zinc and all the minerals so our blood is of good quality, and we produce more blood with those nutrients through the spleen and stomach, or the zhongqi, the digestive system, okay? So that's how we produce post-natal blood. And then in general, it is formed in the heart because the heart is in charge of blood circulation. Heart moves blood, right, through qi, because qi moves blood, but heart is in charge of blood circulation. So we have the blood that is activated by the heart. It is produced by the spleen and stomach. It is also at the core from the kidney, right? So all those are going to be involved when there is blood issue in Chinese medicine perspective. The function of blood is easy. It moistens and nourishes the body. That's a basic one because blood is part of body fluid. So it nourishes the body through, like I said, ferritin and zinc and magnesium and all the minerals that are found in our blood. It moistens with oxygen that we breathe in that goes into our cells, our blood cells, right? So it's really important, that blood that we have, right? It's vital. Without blood, we can't survive, right? Hemorrhage, hello? So that's the function, the main function. The second main function, which is different and very specific to Chinese medicine, is blood is the material basis of the mind. So in Chinese medicine, blood is part of what is going to dictate how our mind functions. That's why it's really important to understand that, when we talk about the heart in TCM, and we always say, the heart is in charge of the mind. And, if you have anxiety, the heart is affected. If you can't sleep at night, the heart is affected. That's because the heart is in charge of blood circulation. It is really going to bring a lot of blood cells and oxygen to the brain for function. So what's interesting about this is that it's really important to know that if there is any mental health issue, being anxiety, being something really far like Alzheimer, something like depression, something like any kind of mental health that's going to affect the mind, it is related to the blood in TCM. And this is why we have a lot of points in Chinese medicine that nourish blood, that allows to calm the mind. For example, spleen 6. Spleen 6 is one of the best points to calm the mind, and it's really good for blood purposes. So is spleen 4. Spleen 4 is really good for anxiety, and it's connected to the Chong meridian, or the Chong vessel, which is the sea of blood. So connected to blood as well, right? So it's really important to know that anything in the mind, blood is going to be connected to it. Okay. So when it comes to blood pathology, right? What pathology we can have? It's either blood deficiency, blood stasis, or heat in the blood, or blood heat. So let's look at what that looks like. When we talk about blood deficiency, it's a deficiency, of course. Blood stasis and blood heat will be excess because it doesn't say deficiency. So blood deficiency for me is super easy. It's P and P. Pale and poor. Pale lips, pale face, pale tongue, pale everything, pale nails, right? And it's poor. Poor sleep. And what kind of poor sleep is blood deficiency? It's when you cannot fall asleep. It's not when you wake up later. It's when you cannot fall asleep. It takes you 2 to 3 hours to fall asleep. That's blood deficiency. Poor energy, fatigue, of course. Poor vision. So when there's blood deficiency, there's floaters, there's spots, there's blurred vision, night blindness, people that don't see very well at night. That is a blood deficiency. Dizziness can also be a blood deficiency. However, not all dizziness are blood deficiency. I know, that's the fun part, right? So that's a pale and poor, right? The pulse is going to be very thin, right? We're going to have pale and poor. Poor memory as well. That is going to come up. Poor focus, poor concentration. That is also a blood deficiency. So pale and poor is a blood deficiency. That's easy to remember that way. And of course, we have to nourish blood. So yes, we can do points like spleen 4, spleen 6, right? Depending which organ is affected. Liver 8 if it's liver. For pale nails, vision issue, that's more liver. Numbness as well. So tingling and pins and needles are usually a blood deficiency. There's not enough blood flow, and that is often stemming from stagnation, okay, from blood stagnation. Blood stagnation can lead to blood deficiency. So if that's the case, then we wanna move blood and we want to nourish blood. Now, however, if someone is really blood deficient in TCM, it doesn't mean they're anemic in the Western sense. However, if someone is anemic, they are blood deficient in TCM. Okay, so it doesn't go both ways. But acupuncture is going to help. However, if the person is anemic and the blood deficiency is actually a Western diagnosis, that's anemia, you can do all the acupuncture in the world. If you're not taking ferritin and having the ferritin level back up, acupuncture is not going to do it. You can't do it, right? Makes sense, right? That makes sense. Okay, so that's the first one. Greetings! Wills is here from Nigeria. Hi! I love it. I love that you guys are coming from every continent. That's awesome. So blood deficiency was pale and poor. Blood stagnation is also P and P. But this one is purple and pain. So purple and pain, meaning purple lips, purple tongue, purple nails, purple bruise. Let's say someone, you bumped yourself into something and then now you have a hematoma or you have a bad bruise and you're like, wow, how did I do that? Sometimes we don't remember where we bumped, right? But if you fall, let's say you went biking and you fall and you have a big bruise, you know what happened. And that is the purple. The pain, when it comes to blood stasis, is a fixed, stagnant pain. So it's fixed, meaning it's in one area. If you fall off your bike and you fall on your hip and the hematoma or the bruise is on your hip, that's where the pain is. It's fixed, it's on the pain, right? Dysmenorrhea, having painful menstruation, the pain is fixed, it's in the uterus area. If we're having a migraine that is on one side of the head and doesn't go anywhere, that is fixed, stabbing pain. So not only that pain is fixed, but it's really strong, it's stabbing, it's so painful. That's a blood stasis. So it could be acute, like you hurt yourself, like trauma, physical trauma to the body, or it could be chronic and keep coming back. We still have to look for the root cause. However, it's always purple and pain, okay? Now, the best thing to do is to do large intestine 4, best point to move blood, unless the person is pregnant, because it's contraindicated. Liver 3, right, and our LI4 are great to move chi and blood, because liver 3 moves chi, chi moves blood, and I4 moves blood. So the 4 gates, open the gate, let's move everything. After that, it's figure out where the pain is and treating the pain itself. If it's dysmenorrhea, the best points are spleen 8 and kidney 5. They're really good for pain in the uterus, for example, right? So it's looking at where the pain is and treating that and addressing that. Yes? Okay. Oh, thank you, Nora. Oh, well, apparently I wasn't that amazing when I just shrank everything. Thank you, Nora. She said you're amazing. Bonjour, Clara from East Grinstead near London. Hello, Estelle. Bonjour. I love it. Okay, and the last one is heat in the blood or blood heat. It's interchangeable. It depends on the translation of the book. It means the same thing. Don't get hanged on words. Often like you read books and you're like, well, what does that mean? Is this different than this? Just make it simple, right? So blood heat or heat in the blood. Now in this picture, I put something because I want to differentiate heat in the blood from spleen not holding the blood within the blood vessels, which is a very deficiency kind of pattern that is very specific to spleen in Chinese medicine. Heat in the blood and spleen not holding the blood within the blood vessel, main symptoms is bleeding, or I should say abnormal bleeding, okay? So when it is heat in the blood, we're going to have abnormal bleeding plus heat symptoms like rapid pulse, large and big, like a red tongue with a yellow coat most of the time. And then we're going to feel hot. Maybe there's fever if it's acute, or we're going to have heat sign, right? We want to see heat sign. For example, if there is abnormal rectal bleeding, it will be blood heat or heat in the blood if the bleeding is burning and it's very smelly. When there is smelly stools, that is heat, okay? Now, if someone is rectal bleeding and they're very fatigued after and there is no smell to it and it's pale blood, that's a spleen not holding the blood within the blood vessel, okay? So that's the difference. It's the same with if there is heavy metrorrhagia, which is heavy flooding of menstruation. If the flooding is, the person is very tired, very weak, very pale, there's spleen chi deficient, not holding the blood within the blood vessel. That's a different story. But if they are heavy bleeding and the blood is quite smelly, it's metallic, like a metal smell to it. It is also, the person's really overheated, they're very hot, they have a red tongue, the rapid pulse, that is heat in the blood. And that happens often to liver or pericardium. Those are the two that are going to have heat in the blood. And what do? We clear the heat. And what are the best points for heat in the blood? 2 best points for heat in the blood. Spleen 10 and bladder 40. Those are great to really calm that heat in the blood. Those are your basics. After that, you can clear heat in general with large intestine 11, for example. And then go to which area is affected, right? If it's something that's affecting like flooding of menstruation versus rectal versus nosebleed, any kind of bleeding, you're going to have to go more in depth. But your basics are spleen 10, bladder 40, and then LI11 to clear the heat. Yes? Good. So that is for blood. See how that was way faster than chi. Body fluid and TCM, very simple. How do we get body fluid? Well, that's easy. You have to drink and eat food that brings you body fluid. There is no other way, right? So when people say, oh, if someone's really body fluid deficient, what acupuncture point can you do? I'm like, none. There's no acupuncture point that's gonna give you more fluid. If you have no water in your tub, you can poke the tub all you want. You need to put water in the tub. So we need to ingest the fluid. And that's done through lubrication and hydration. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So in Chinese medicine, the fluids are coming from outside, from drinking and food, right? The function of fluids, which are called Jing and Ye, are to nourish and moisten the body, which makes sense. If we have a nice moistened skin, we have enough fluids, right? That's exactly what happened, right? This is how it works. Now, what's interesting is we have Jing and Yang. So Jing is the thin fluids, and the thin fluids are going to moisten our skin. They're part of like our sweat. They're part of our anything that's clear fluid, like it's light, it's saliva, it's tears, it's sweat, and it's part of blood also, right? That Jing circulates more in the external part, in the Wei Qi, in the defensive Qi. That's what gives us a nice skin or not, right? The Ye is the thick fluid. It's the gastric juice, it's the brain, it's the eyes, it's everything, the marrow, it's all the thick, heavy, dense fluid we have. And that is going to be circulating into our organ or yin qi, the nutritive qi, right? It's nourishing the thick organs. Make sense? So we have two kinds of fluids. I call them the water fluid and the oil fluid. Right? Think of that way, right? The thick is oily and the water is more like thin and fluid, right? Make sense? So the only thing that can happen is we can have body fluid deficiency or body fluid excess. Those are the only two things that happen. It's very simple. Body fluid deficiency, everything dries up. Dry eyes, dry mouth, dry skin, dry stool, dry hair, everything is dry, right? So body fluid deficiency is going to cause dryness. However, other things will happen like spasm, Charlie horse, or a really bad cramp in the back of your calf. Nobody likes that. It's just so not a good feeling. And that's when we are most of the time dehydrated, right? So often it's lack of potassium. Potassium comes from hydration, from food and drinks. So when someone is having a lot of cramps, we need to say, okay, we need to hydrate. Now, what's interesting also is that if someone is dehydrated, there is two root cause. Either it's hydration from electrolyte, so maybe they're not drinking enough fluids, water, but also water, high water containing foods like cucumbers got lots of water in it. Watermelon has lots of water in it, right? So really electrolyte. Lemon has high electrolyte as well. So we need hydration, but we also need lubrication. So for a lot of women in their 50s, hello me, when they're hitting menopause, or they're all saying my skin is drying, I feel like everything is dry, and often the doctors or the practitioner, healthcare practitioner, will recommend vitamin E. What is vitamin E? It's a fat-soluble vitamin. Vitamin D is the same thing as well, right? So we need food that is going to lubricate, right? We need what I call fatty lubricating food, which means seeds and nuts. Vitamin E is in almonds, right? Seeds and nuts, really good to lubricate. Avocado is really good to lubricate as well. Anything that is going to give you good fats, like if you eat salmon, wild salmon is good for that as well. So good, fatty, healthy nutrients food and hydrating, high electrolyte food is going to help for body fluid deficiency. Acupuncture is not going to do it. Absolutely not. Now, other symptoms are going to be eye twitch. And the eye twitch comes from blood deficiency. So blood and body fluid are together. Blood is a substance that has body fluid into it, right? This is why we have minerals into it. It comes from minerals. So often if we have eye twitch, it's a body fluid that comes from it's a body fluid that comes from blood deficiency, right? So then we can nourish the blood, but also address the body fluid deficiency. Make sense? Okay. The other option, if we don't have deficiency, is to have too much body fluid. And I think in North America, most people have too much body fluid, which is called excess dampness, right? We all have excess dampness often. So I'll start by saying the root cause of this could be many. One of the basic one is eating too much damp food, which means sugar, processed food, dairy, right? This is really high in mucus, in forming dampness. So I'm from France, I like cheese. I don't drink milk. I'm not a big dairy person for like milk and yogurt and all this, but I like cheese. So I have to kind of step back if I feel like I'm mucusy or I have too much dampness, right? So because that's something that affects me, of course. So in general, dairy is a big one. Like I said, sugar, processed food will create more dampness in the body. And so we have different dampness again, right? We have the dampness that is going to be water retention, like edema. But we also have mucus, like having constant postnasal drip, having greasy skin, having greasy scalp, coughing phlegm, right? We're coughing phlegm, having water retention, like bloating or edema of the lower leg, or having puffy on our face, feeling puffy, I should say, being puffy in anywhere. That's water retention. Now, there's different things to be done with that. Sometimes we want to dry the dampness, and you could use food for that. Like a ginger is very good to dry mucus, to dry the dampness, for example. Or sometimes you want to eliminate the dampness by peeing it out. That's a diuretic way, right? So dandelion, for example, or asparagus are great to bring the dampness out in a way that we pee it out, right? So that if it's really edema, that works really well, for example, to have like dandelion salad or asparagus. Make sense? So now when we have a lot of water retention, and I see that a lot with pregnant women, of course, because that's, pregnant women have tendency to retain fluid. So in general, you can use acupuncture. It is going to help. Spleen 9 is your best point. Gallbladder 34 is amazing. Stomach 40 if there's phlegm on top of it. And there's lots of other points you can use to clear the excess dampness depending where it's located. However, it won't be enough. It's going to feel good for a little while, but it won't last if the root cause is eating the food that creates dampness. Make sense? Right? So we have to always address the food with the body fluid being excess or deficiency, because that's the main cause most of the time. Okay, you guys, we're doing really good, and I really appreciate you being here, because we've been over an hour and 15 minutes, and you've been amazing. So thank you for being here. And then Darren said, hi, Clara, and Elle says, hi, doctor. Hi. Darren says, is there Western medicine equivalent to the 4 vital substances? Yes, there is. Your DNA is essence, your blood is blood, your body fluid is your body fluid, and she is your physiological aspect. It's just not called vital substances. But yes, good question. Now for Raphael, when he was asking, what do you do to boost or nourish body fluid and chi when someone has had medication that basically depleted them, it's always food. So that's why I wanted to mention that. It's really important to put lubrication and hydration. So hopefully I answered your question, Raphael, because I didn't want to forget about you when we moved on. And the last but not least, one of the most important, none of them are more important than the other, we need them all, but essence, or Jing in Chinese medicine. To me, when I learned Chinese medicine, this resonated with me so much. I really grasped into essence. It made so much sense to me. Oh, Adela, thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you. Essence, as I said when I first started, I wasn't blessed with great essence. Plus, I was born 10 weeks early, so I wasn't finished. I didn't have all my essence to start with. But what's interesting is essence is our congenital DNA. It's what's given to us by our parents, right? So when they came at the time of conception, they gave us their best health or worse health, depending. Birth parents are going to give you your congenital DNA. And that's essence, right? And that's called prenatal essence, which encompasses you and chi, or prenatal chi, right? Physiological aspect. Your parents give you your hair color, your eyes color, everything that, people will say, oh, I have my mother's thighs, or, I have my father's nose. That is essence, right? We can't change that. I mean, you could go through surgery and change things, but in reality, we can't change that by just being, right? Now, the second one is postnatal essence. And that's what we do with the life we were given. It's the lifestyle we do and have in order to preserve that. So I always say, there are, I have actually a video on this, and it's on explaining essence. It's on my YouTube channel on explaining with 3 glasses of water. But, essence, we have so much when we were born. So for me, if I'm comparing myself to someone, let's say with Down syndrome, their essence at birth was less than mine. So it was maybe a quarter of a glass. Mine was maybe half of a glass of essence. I had a little bit more. Theirs was much lower. And you could see that because essence is part of our aging system. It's going to predict a lot of how we're going to age. And someone that has Down syndrome, most average age for Down syndrome is about 44 years old. There are some people that go to 60, but it's very rare. So their lifespan is limited because they have less essence, unfortunately. Obviously, if they have a good lifestyle and good support from the family, they will definitely have a better life and longer shelf life. Same thing for me. I had half a glass, let's say, right? Didn't have great essence. However, if my lifestyle is really preserving that essence and I'm eating well, exercising, and there's a balance, right? It's not about over-exercising. It's about doing it right, sleeping enough, finding ways to de-stress, because stress is an aging, depleting essence kind of thing. I don't do drugs, right? I don't smoke. I don't do all those things. Then I'm preserving whatever I was given, that half a glass, and it's going to slowly diminish as I'm aging. However, it will diminish much slower than if I did drugs, than if I partied all the time, than if I ate bad food, then I had so much more stress and trauma. Another thing is there's things we can control to preserve essence, which is our lifestyle. And there's things we can't control, which is trauma, right? If we have dealt with trauma, we understand that we'll age much faster. You guys know that if we get a bad news, a parent loses a child, they can age overnight and go gray overnight. This is being documented. This is all over the world. We can gray overnight from the shock and the trauma of an event, right? That ages us much faster. So trauma is out of our control. We can't do anything about it. But the lifestyle we can to try to preserve our essence. Now, if someone is born with great essence, like they are healthy, they were born healthy, they never were sick as a child, they just had a few cold and flus, but nothing major. They grew to be this very strong person, an adult, but then they go and make choices that are not going to preserve and support that great essence. I always say that's a shame because you were born with more essence. You are, in a way, a little bit luckier. So preserve it, right? Do everything you can because you are at an advantage compared to someone that has a disadvantage with having to work a little bit harder to preserve that essence. So this is very much TCM. The function of essence is to grow, develop, and keep us, aging properly. That's the function, as in, pregnancy, essence being good for development of the brain, of the body, child development, growth, pregnancy, conception, etc., etc. So that's what essence is in charge. And it's found within the kidneys. That's why the TCM kidneys are in charge of that whole growth aging system. That's why I always say it's connected to aging. Okay. Thank you. You already answered it. Perfect. Thanks, Raphael. Wonderful. Thank you. Joy knowledge to bring us. Love it. Oh, thank you, Nadia from the Netherlands. Okay. So essence cannot be excess. It can only be deficiency, right? That's the only way. We're going to slowly diminish it. But some of us are going to diminish faster. So if I have a new patient that comes in and they're 24 years old and they have osteoporosis already, and they have gray hair already, and I've had patients like this. They have had miscarriages over and over and over, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Their body is essence deficient. It's going to give me clues, right? So if they were braces as a child, there's less essence than someone has their teeth straight their whole life. So I'll ask patients that question. Oh, yeah, your teeth are beautiful. Like, were you born that way or did you have braces, right? That gives me clues. If a man is 24 years old and he's already lost half of the hair on his head, he's balding, that is an essence deficiency that's usually passed on, and his dad probably the same thing happened, right? So it's looking at someone that's aging faster than their biological age when they were born, right? Slow development in children as well, that can be, but there's always a level and a degree of essence deficiency. Fertility issue. If a man has low morphology, like zero morphology, meaning he can't conceive, that's an essence deficiency, right? Low count is less of a problem, but it's still a bit of an essence deficiency. Low motility, the guys are not moving properly, that's a liver chi stagnation. That's not hard, that's easy to treat. So we look at that, right? If a woman's, has issue with, fertility issue, we have to look, is this a blood deficiency or is this an essence deficiency? I'd rather it be a blood deficiency because we can treat that much easier than essence, right? It's very hard to change. The essence is just preserving it. So how do we preserve essence? Well, the best way is lifestyle, right? With TCM perspective, you can obviously educate the patient, and then you can use point to tonify or nourish the kidney and preserve the kidney. Like you could use kidney 3, kidney 6, right? You could use kidney 9 if the person is pregnant to give good essence to the baby. Kidney 9 is called a beautiful baby point. It's really good for pregnancy. And so, you know, we could do all that. We could do points to access essence. Essence circulates in the 8 extra vessels. So we can use points to access essence, like lung 7, which access the Ren vessel, right? The conception vessel. So this is what we can do to help. However, lifestyle is going to be a huge impact, specifically stress. It's really important that the person found ways to de-stress, because stress is always going to be there. Make sense? So that's for the kidney essence deficiency. Everything you saw comes from this book. Everything you saw today, all the graphics come from this book. I have 3 books. This is Chinese Medicine Made Easy. It explains everything in an easy way, and it's got the PDF or the hard copy. It ships all over the world. If you want to check it out, the link is below the video. Check it out. But that's where I get all my graphics, because people have asked me to make books, which I did, and they've been having an impact on so many people. So I'm really, really pleased with the outcome. I will say that if you want more, make sure you go to my website. I have so much resources, so many more resources. I have free courses and premium courses where you can get continuing education, but I have tons of free PDF and protocol and case studies and so much more on my website. Go to the resource page. You will not regret it. There's a lot to support your knowledge, or if you need any help. And there's a search bar to help you as well. So when it comes to the 4 vital substances, I think, you know, it's a lot to take. It's a big lecture usually, but what we have to remember is there's a lot we can do to help patients. And number 1 is educate the patient and try to explain to them how we are a guide and we're here to educate and help them in their journey and support them. But they have to do the work as well. We can't do this just by ourselves. They have to do that as well.